So last month, we saw this historic development for rights of nature in Pennsylvania. Chad, which I alluded to, what was that development, and what led Grant Township residents in Pennsylvania to engage in this work?
Yeah, thanks, Simon, and thanks everyone for being on here tonight. So if folks are not familiar with Grant, I'll just try to give a quick background, and it's been an incredibly convoluted journey with them over the last 6 years or so. So or some steps, but Grant Township is a small rural municipality in Pennsylvania, west central Pennsylvania. It's about 700 people, quite poor. And they were being faced with a frac waste injection well. So if folks are not familiar with what an injection well is, it is basically a sewer. It's a toilet for the fracking industry, where they dump large amounts of toxic waste that comes up from the fracking operations. So it can be radioactive. There's been tests that have shown that. It can contain cancer-causing agents like toluene and benzene that go into the fracking mix cocktails. They force it into the ground under high pressure. It's caused earthquakes in places like Ohio and Oklahoma and California where they've been shut down. So it's pretty nasty stuff. They're basically dumping toxic waste into the ground near the drinking water in these places. And that was what Grant Township was facing. The company is Pennsylvania General Energy. That's the company that wants to dump the frac waste. They received permits from the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, as well as our own state Department of Environmental Protection in Pennsylvania. So they received state and federal permits to dump the waste. Those permits essentially legalize the dumping of toxic waste near Grant Township's water supply. So they, as you imagine, were not really happy about that. They originally tried to appeal the issuance of those permits, particularly to the EPA. The EPA appeal didn't go anywhere. They said, you know, this is a legitimate use under current regulations, and so we're going to allow the frac well to proceed, or the frac waste to be dumped. At that point, Grant Township folks from there got in touch with me, and I worked with them on a local law, a community bill of rights, that asserted the rights of the people of the community to self-govern. It asserted the rights of the people of the community to their health and safety. And it also gave rights to ecosystems and to the natural world within the township. So that was 2014. They passed that law, and that law banned frac waste as a violation of those rights. They were sued a couple months later in federal court by the company that wants to dump the waste. The judge that presided over that case was a woman who had investments in a subsidiary of Halliburton up until about 2 months before she took the case. So that was who was presiding over the case. We had a good idea of how it was going to go. She ruled against the township, basically claimed they didn't have the authority to pass a local law that would ban the injection wells. It was beyond their authority at the local law, that this is a state and a federal matter. That was what she said. So she basically overturned the ordinance. That was October 2015. Less than a month later, in November of 2015, the people of Grant Township voted in a new law. They actually changed their form of government at the local level. They became a rural municipality, and they voted in a charter, which reinstated the ban on injection wells less than a month after the federal judge had thrown out the ban. So that ban was in place for a couple of years until early 2017, when the State Department of Environmental Protection actually sued the community this time. So it wasn't the industry suing Grant Township. It was their own state so-called Environmental Protection Agency that sued the township to try to remove their ban on injection wells. The DEP said that the ban on injection wells was interfering with the DEP's ability to carry out state oil and gas policy. So they said, you know, we can't have local communities making all these kinds of laws. So they sued the township. Grant Township didn't back down from that. They then responded with another law that legalized nonviolent direct action within the community. They basically said, we don't know that the courts are going to protect our rights or give us the remedies we want at this point. So if it comes to having to protect our rights and enforce our charter ourselves, we're going to legalize direct action and actually allow people to stand physically in the way of this waste from being dumped if it comes to that. And we will not have criminal charges filed against them. That was what Grant did. So they kept upping the ante. That case has kind of been going through some procedural stuff the last couple of years until we got this monumental decision just about a month ago, where the state DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, which had been suing this township for trying to protect its environment, reversed course, and they actually revoked the permit that they had issued to the company And they cited Grant Township's local rights of nature law as a valid applicable law, and that was the authority the DEP was using to now revoke that permit that they had issued to the company before. So a lot of folks wonder why they did that. We don't really know. We have some ideas. The DEP right now is under criminal investigation for various things in the state of Pennsylvania, for reasons we can speculate. But the point is that this was the first time in the country that we're aware of that a local rights of nature law actually forced a state environmental agency to permit for a harmful corporate activity. So it was a big deal. Of course, the company is going to appeal that decision from the DEP. We expect that. It's also possible that the company will now step in to try to sue the township again. Basically, if the DEP is not going to do it, the company might do it again. So Grant knows that the battle and the war is not over. But in terms of looking at how these laws have been enacted over the years and where they're going, this is a pretty major milestone on the route of getting communities and nature more rights and protections. So we can applaud Grant Township for that. And basically the point of the story is this wasn't necessarily just the law that did it. This has been Grant Township's relentless resistance and their relentless effort and work over the years